13.8 billion years before the Battle of Yavin, the universe is formed following the Big Bang. As space expands and clouds of hydrogen begin to gather, stars begin to form. 13 billion years before the Battle of Yavin, the Milky Way galaxy is formed when stars and clouds of dust and gas begin to revolve around a supermassive black hole. 3 billion years later, the Andromeda galaxy forms in a similar process. At the same time, the Force comes into existence, springing forth from the wellspring of life. Over many billions of years, planets begin to form around stars, and life begins to evolve on them in many different varieties. 65 million years before the Battle of Yavin, a massive asteroid over 6 miles in diameter strikes Earth, causing a massive extinction event that wipes out the creatures known as the dinosaurs. Around 500,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Homo sapiens species begins to evolve on Earth, eventually evolving into modern-day humans. About 200,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the biological ancestors of the humans of the Andromeda galaxy, known as the Zell, fight and defeat the Tong for control of their home planet, which will later become known as Coruscant. The Tong are exiled and are considered the ancestors of the original Mandalorians. By 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the race known as the Celestials have control over much of the Andromeda galaxy. They enslave races across the galaxy and develop highly advanced technology, including Centerpoint Station, and even create entire systems through their technology, including the Corellian system. In the year 36,453 BBY, mysterious ships known as the Tho-Yor activate on 8 different planets. The Force-sensitive beings on these planets answer the call of the ships, which take them to the planet Tython. There they form the Jedi Order, and dedicate themselves to learning more about their powers and achieving balance between the light and dark sides of the Force. Almost 1,500 years later, the race known as the Rakata have developed a deep connection to the dark side of the Force. They rise up and free themselves from the Celestials. They then create their own advanced technology powered by the dark side, and construct the superweapon known as the Starforge. They begin to travel across the galaxy using hyperdrive technology powered by the dark side, and enslave races across the galaxy, forming what will become known as the Infinite Empire. Over 7,000 years later, the Rakata attempt to attack the planet Korriban, home of the original Sith species. The Sith King Aegis rallies his people, and they drive the Rakata away, although Korriban is devastated by the conflict. The Sith species relocate to Ziost, but Korriban remains a holy world to the Sith. In the year 25,793 BBY, the Rakata attempt to invade Tython. They encounter the Jedi Order and are driven away. However, the invasion negatively affects the Jedi, which fractures, breaking into 2 factions, one of which follows the light side of the Force, and the other the dark side. They fight in what becomes known as the Force Wars. Both sides wield metal swords that glow with the power of the Force. The conflict lasts 10 years, and ends in victory for the forces who follow the light. The survivors rename themselves the Jedi Order, and swear to only use their powers to protect and serve the weak. They relocate temporarily to Ahch-To, where they build the first Jedi Temple. Not long after, they relocate again, this time to Ossus. Almost 600 years after their attack on Tython, the Rakata are struck with a mysterious plague that cuts off their connection to the Force. Without their connection to the Force, their technology is rendered useless, and their slaves begin to rise up and rebel, causing the Infinite Empire to crumble. Following the fall of the Infinite Empire, Rakatan hyperspace technology is reverse engineered by Corellian scientists, bringing about a new expansion from the core worlds. In the year 25,053 BBY, the Republic is formed, and Coruscant is named as its capital. 53 years later, the Republic encounters the Jedi Order on Ossus. The Jedi travel to Coruscant and agree to pledge themselves as protectors of the Republic. In the year 24,500 BBY, the first great schism of the Jedi Order occurs when a Jedi requests to make an academy for the purpose of studying the dark side. His request is rejected, and in response, he forms the Legions of Latau. The Jedi Order declares war on the Legions and destroys them. Over the next few thousand years, the Republic continues to expand and the Jedi Order continues to grow. In the year 22,800 BBY, a Jedi follows the Force to the unknown regions, where they discover the planet Ilum. Ilum becomes a holy world to the Jedi, where Jedi younglings go to gather kyber crystals to build their lightsabers. For the next 15,000 years, the Republic continues to expand outwards from the core, sparking many minor conflicts. Around the year 10,000 BBY, the Temple of the Kyber is built on the moon Jeddah. In the year 7000 BBY, several dark Jedi break away from the Jedi Order, beginning the Second Great Schism in the 100-Year Darkness. The conflict ends at the Battle of Corvos, where the Dark Jedi are defeated, stripped of their weapons, and exiled. The exiles come to Sith space and discover Ziost and Korriban, as well as the original Sith species. They quickly conquer the Sith, who mistake their new masters for gods. The Dark Jedi form what will become known as the Sith Order. 5,200 years before the Battle of Yavin, and around 3,200 years BC, humanity is continuing to evolve on Earth, and the first writing systems begin to emerge among humans on Earth. 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, two Republic scouts stumble upon Korriban. The Dark Lord of the Sith at the time, Naga Sadow, tracks them back to the Republic and attempts to conquer it in what will become known as the Great Hyperspace War. He is defeated and retreats to Yavin 4, where he is entombed. In the aftermath of Sadow's defeat, 8,000 surviving Sith retreat to the planet Nathema, where a Sith Lord named Vitiate conducts a Sith ritual that strips all life from the planet, giving him immortality and immense power. Vitiate declares himself as the Sith Emperor and begins a 20-year journey to find the lost Sith world of Dromund Kaas. Years after finding Dromund Kaas, a Sith scout discovers the planet Exegol in the unknown regions, and the Sith build a citadel on the planet, intending for it to be a secret hideaway for the Sith Order. Around this time, a Sith temple is constructed on the world of Malachor. In the year 4573 BBY, or 2560 BC, the Great Pyramid of Giza is completed in ancient Egypt on Earth, a landmark which will later become one of the 7 wonders of the world. In 4400 BBY, a Padawan named Freedon Nad is rejected the title of Jedi Knight and seeks Sith teachings. He encounters the spirit of Naga Sadow on Yavin 4 and learns under him before declaring himself a Sith and destroying the spirit of Sadow. Nad then conquers the world of Onderon, where he reigns for 100 years. In 4250 BBY, the Third Great Schism occurs when a group of Dark Jedi break away and attack the Jedi Order. They attempt to use a superweapon known as the Cosmic Turbine, but only succeed in destroying themselves and the Voltar system. In the year 4083 BBY, or 2070 BC, the Jing Dynasty, the first dynasty of ancient China, is founded, beginning one of the longest-lasting civilizations on Earth. In 4000 BBY, the Jedi attempt to cleanse Onderon of the dark side influence left behind by Freedon Nad. One of the Jedi, Ulic Qel-Droma, is influenced by Nad's spirit and begins to fall to the dark side. Several years later, another Jedi named Exar Kun begins to seek Sith teachings and a hunger for power. He infiltrates Freedon Nad's tomb and learns Sith teachings under Nad's spirit before traveling to Yavin 4 for further teaching. There, he destroys Nad's spirit and emerges a Sith. He attempts to hunt down Ulic Qel-Droma, believing him a threat, but instead, Ulic and Kun join forces, with Ulic becoming Kun's apprentice. Together they build an army and begin the old Sith Wars, conquering worlds throughout the galaxy. Finally, in a battle on Coruscant, Ulic kills his own brother, and his grief turns him back to the light. Ulic assists the Republic and the Jedi in driving back Kun, and leads them to Kun's hideout on Yavin 4, where Kun releases his spirit to hide within the walls of the Great Temple. Years later, a Sith agent influences Mandalore the Ultimate to wage war on the Republic. Gathering an army, Mandalore the Ultimate attacks the Republic, beginning the Mandalorian Wars 3,964 years before the Battle of Yavin. For several years the conflict wages on, with the Mandalorians gaining the upper ground, until a Jedi named Revan and his friend Malak defy the orders of the Jedi Council and join the war effort to lead the Republic army. Revan successfully drives the Mandalorians back, and at the Battle of Malachor, he defeats Mandalore the Ultimate in single combat, and destroys the Mandalorian army by activating the superweapon contained within the Sith Temple on the planet. Following the defeat of the Mandalorians, Revan and Malak travel into the unknown regions to investigate Sith influence on the Mandalorians and meet the Sith Emperor. They are turned to the dark side by the teaching of the Sith Emperor and become the Dark Lords of the Sith, Darth Revan and Darth Malak, with Revan as master and Malak as apprentice. They form a new Sith Empire and attack the Republic, beginning the Jedi Civil War. They locate the ancient Rakatan weapon, the Starforge, which they begin using to build up a new fleet to wage war with the Republic. 2 years after the start of the war, in a battle with the Republic, Darth Malak betrays Darth Revan and fires on Revan's ship. Revan survives thanks to Bastila Shan, but loses his memory in the process. The Jedi see a chance and rehabilitate Revan. A year after his rehabilitation, Revan leads the Republic fleet in an attack on the Starforge. Revan defeats his old friend Malak, and the Starforge is destroyed, with its wreckage being left in orbit around Rakata Prime. Following the defeat of Malak, the remnants of his Sith Empire retreat, and the Sith triumvirate of Darth Traya, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Sion is formed. They begin a Jedi purge that lasts 4 years and destroys most of the Jedi Order, before the 3 members of the triumvirate are killed by Mitra Sirik, who helps lead the Jedi Order on the path to recovery. 1 year later, Revan, Mitra Sirik, and the Sith Lord Scourge attempt to assassinate the Sith Emperor. Sirik and Scourge are killed, and Revan is taken prisoner by the Sith Emperor. 3,907 years before the Battle of Yavin, in 1894 BC, the city of Babylon is founded on Earth. 1 century later, the famed Babylonian king Hammurabi ascends to the throne and creates the Babylonian Empire, which will last for over 1,200 years. In 3681 BBY, the Sith Emperor launches a campaign that begins the Great Galactic War, beginning with the recapture of the Sith world of Korriban. The Sith Empire devastates the Republic in a lengthy war. In 3667 BBY, the Sith Lord Darth Malgus leads an attack on Alderaan, but fights and is driven back by Satil Shan, the descendant of Bastila Shan and Revan. Satil wounds Malgus, forcing him to use a respirator for the rest of his life. 14 years later, Darth Malgus leads an attack on the Jedi Temple, and the Sith Empire sacks Coruscant. This leads to the Treaty of Coruscant, which ends the Great Galactic War and gives the Sith Empire control of almost 2/3 of the galaxy. In the same year, the criminal syndicate known as Black Sun is founded. The Jedi relocate to Tython, led by Satil Shan, and they build a temple on the planet. The Treaty of Coruscant begins a Cold War that will last just over a decade before the treaty breaks down again in 3642 BBY, beginning the Galactic War. After only a year of fighting, the Sith Emperor is presumably killed by a Jedi known as the Hero of Tython, and the Sith Empire retreats. Darth Malgus attempts to declare a new Sith Empire, but is soon killed. Fighting continues for the next several years until, in 3637 BBY, a new empire, the Eternal Empire, led by Valkorion, who is in fact secretly the Sith Emperor Vitiate, attacks both the Sith Empire and the Republic. The Eternal Alliance is soon formed to fight the Eternal Empire, led by a being known as the Outlander. After 7 years of fighting, and several power struggles between Valkorion and his children, Valkorion is killed on Zakul, and the spirit of Vitiate is finally vanquished by the Outlander. The Republic regains control over most of the galaxy, and the Jedi return to Coruscant and rebuild the Jedi Temple. In the year 3459 BBY, about 1446 BC on Earth, the Israelites are able to escape from Egypt and begin the Exodus. They will wander the wilderness of Sinai for 40 years, before finally arriving in modern-day Israel in about 1406 BC, when they capture the city of Jericho and begin occupying the region. In 2766 BBY and 753 BC, the city of Rome is founded in modern-day Italy. The city grows and expands its influence over the following centuries. In the year 2349 BBY, approximately 336 BC, the Macedonian king Alexander the Great begins his great conquest. His conquest continues for 10 years before he finally turns back, dying in 323 BC. At its height, Alexander's empire spans from the Adriatic Sea to modern-day India, the largest empire in history at the time, a title it would hold for over 300 years. In 2062 BBY, in the year 49 BC, the famous Julius Caesar takes power in Rome, declaring himself dictator for life. However, only 5 years later, in 44 BC, he is assassinated at a meeting of the Senate. Rome continues to grow in its power, and only 17 years after the death of Julius Caesar, it transitions from the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. 2012 years before the Battle of Yavin, the religious figure known as Jesus Christ is born in modern-day Israel. His birth becomes the standard from which time on earth would be measured. 2,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Fourth Great Schism occurs, and a fallen Jedi declares himself Darth Ruin, the first Dark Lord of the Sith in a millennium. He begins the new Sith Wars, which will last for 1,000 years. Around 1980 BBY and 33 AD, Jesus Christ is crucified and rises again 3 days later. In the following years, his followers would continue to spread his teachings, and the Christian faith begins. In 1537 BBY and 476 AD, the western half of the Roman Empire collapses, and the eastern half is renamed the Byzantine Empire. This marks the start of what is commonly known on Earth as the Middle Ages. Around 1400 BBY and around 610 AD, the Arabian prophet Muhammad begins his teachings. Over the following century, the religion of Islam is created by his followers. As the new Sith Wars continue in the Andromeda Galaxy, the Sith win major victories, but infighting among them holds them back. In 1010 BBY, Lord Khan, a fallen Jedi, creates the Brotherhood of Darkness, which emphasizes equality among the Sith. The Brotherhood begins a very successful campaign against the Republic, driving into the heart of its territory. In response, Jedi Lord Hoth creates the Army of Light and leads them against Khan and the Brotherhood. During this time, a Sith Lord named Bane becomes disillusioned with the Brotherhood, believing that Khan's philosophy spits in the face of the Sith. He takes the name Darth Bane and begins plotting to destroy the Brotherhood. In the year 1001 BBY, the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Army of Light begin to clash on the planet Ruusan. The fighting lasts for a whole year. Near the end of the battle, Darth Bane is able to trick the Sith into turning on each other, and eventually the entire Brotherhood of Darkness is destroyed, leaving Darth Bane as the sole survivor. He institutes the Rule of Two, which limits the Sith Order to two individuals, a master and an apprentice, who will work in secret to one day take revenge on the Jedi and the Republic. Following the end of the new Sith Wars, the Ruusan Reformations are instituted, demilitarizing both the Republic and the Jedi, and sharing the power of the Supreme Chancellor more evenly with the Senate. Believing the Sith to be destroyed completely, peace settles across the galaxy. In the year 1215 AD, 798 years before the Battle of Yavin, several lords of Britain band together and force the King of England to sign the Magna Carta. This document begins to limit the power of the king and sets the stage for the future of Britain and for future documents of its kind from other countries. In 1343 AD, 668 years before the Battle of Yavin, the disease known as the Black Death arrives in Europe. The plague will ravage the entire continent for the next 8 years before finally dying down. Estimates of the death caused by the disease range from 75 to 200 million people. In the 1400s AD, the period known as the Renaissance begins, signaling the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of an enlightenment across Europe. In the year 1492 AD, 521 years before the Battle of Yavin, Christopher Columbus discovers the Americas while attempting to find an alternate route to China. His expeditions begin the slow colonization of the Americas by the European powers. In 1521 AD, the Lutheran Church is founded, signaling the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, which will soon begin to sweep over Europe and the rest of the world. In 1583 AD, 430 years before the Battle of Yavin, the British Empire begins. Over the next 4 centuries, Britain would continue to conquer and expand across the globe. At its height, the British Empire controls 26.35% of the world's landmass, making it the largest empire in Earth's history. Due to its control being all across the world, its extent is described as the sun never sets on the British Empire. In 1650 AD, the golden age of piracy begins in the Western Hemisphere. This era, which sees the rise of some of the most famous pirates in history, will last for 80 years. 350 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Trade Federation is founded in the Andromeda Galaxy, soon becoming the primary trade organization in the galaxy. In the year 1776 AD, 237 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Declaration of Independence is signed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the American Revolution begins. The war will last for 7 years, ending in victory for the American colonies, which become a new country known as the United States of America. 6 years after the end of the American Revolution, the French Revolution begins. At around the same time, the Industrial Revolution begins to spread across the world, seeing a vast improvement in industrial capacity the world over. The French Revolution will last for 10 years and ends with France in great unrest. 5 years after the end of the Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte becomes Emperor of France. In 1812 AD, 201 years before the Battle of Yavin, the United States declares war on Great Britain, beginning the War of 1812. The war will last for 3 years before ending in 1815. During this war, the future national anthem of the United States, the Star-Spangled Banner, is written by Francis Scott Key following the Battle of Baltimore. During the war, in the Andromeda Galaxy, a Wookiee named Chewbacca is born on Kashyyyk. In 1861 AD, 152 years before the Battle of Yavin, the American Civil War begins following the secession of the Southern states. The war will last for 4 years, ending with victory for the North and the reunification of the country. Shortly after the end of the war, the American president, Abraham Lincoln, is assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. In the year 1914 AD, 99 years before the Battle of Yavin, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria is assassinated, and very soon after, World War I begins. This war will last for 4 years, seeing some of the worst fighting in mankind's history, including one of the largest naval battles ever, the Battle of Jutland. During the war, the Russian Revolution begins, which leads to the assassination of the Tsar of Russia, Nikolai Romanov, and his family. World War I ends in 1918 following an armistice. Only a month after the end of the war, the world experiences an outbreak of the Spanish flu, which will last until January of 1920, with estimates of the death toll ranging from 17 to 50 million people. In 1922, in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution, the Soviet Union is established from Russia and surrounding states. In the year 1929, 84 years before the Battle of Yavin, a man named Sheev Palpatine is born on the planet of Naboo. In that same year on Earth, an economic downturn known as the Great Depression begins, which will last into the 1930s. In 1939, 74 years before the Battle of Yavin, the forces of Nazi Germany invade Poland. Britain and France declare war on Germany, and the Second World War begins. 2 years later, the Empire of Japan bombs Pearl Harbor, causing the United States to enter the war. 4 years later, Nazi Germany is defeated following the capture of Berlin, and just months later, following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrenders, ending World War II. In 1948 AD, 65 years before the Battle of Yavin, Sheev Palpatine becomes the apprentice of the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis, and takes the name Darth Sidious. In the same year on Earth, the United States conducts the Berlin Airlift, and months later, the State of Israel is created. The following year, in 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, known as NATO, is founded. In 1950 AD, the Korean War begins following the North Korean invasion of South Korea. The war lasts for 3 years and sees international involvement before ending in a ceasefire in 1953. 12 years after the end of the Korean War, the United States becomes involved in the Vietnam War. U.S. involvement in the war lasts for 8 years until 1973, and the war ends with the fall of Saigon in 1975. Shortly before the end of U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, in 1972, a child is born to Shmi Skywalker. The child, named Anakin Skywalker, is born purely of the Force. In the year 32 BBY, or 1981 AD, Palpatine, now the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, has become the Senator of Naboo. Palpatine conspires as Sidious with the Trade Federation to blockade and then occupy Naboo. 2 Jedi Knights, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, are sent to resolve the crisis. They successfully rescue Queen Amidala and escape, but are forced to land on Tatooine. There, Qui-Gon encounters Anakin Skywalker and suspects that he is the Chosen One who will bring balance to the Force. After escaping Tatooine, the Jedi and Amidala make their way to Coruscant, where Amidala presents her planet's plight to the Senate, and then motions for a vote to replace Supreme Chancellor Valorum as Supreme Chancellor, exactly as Palpatine wished. She then returns to Naboo with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and frees her planet from the Trade Federation. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan duel Palpatine's secret apprentice, Darth Maul. Maul kills Qui-Gon, and is then presumably killed by Obi-Wan. Shortly after this, Palpatine first meets Anakin Skywalker, and sensing his power in the Force, plans to make him his apprentice. A few months after the Battle of Naboo, the Israeli Air Force launches Operation Opera, an airstrike on an Iraqi nuclear reactor near Baghdad. The operation, carried out by 8 elite Israeli pilots, including Ilan Ramon, is a complete success, and the reactor is successfully destroyed. After the presumed death of Darth Maul, Palpatine takes the fallen Jedi Dooku as his new apprentice until Anakin is of age. Together, the two plot to overthrow the Republic. At the same time, Jedi Master Sifo Dyas secretly commissions the Kaminoans to create a clone army for the Republic. Palpatine and Dooku learn of this, and Dooku secretly arranges Sifo Dyas' death. The two then take control of the program, providing the Kaminoans with an inhibitor chip containing Order 66. 8 years after the Battle of Naboo, a number of systems following Count Dooku secede from the Republic and form the Confederacy of Independent Systems, more commonly known as the Separatists. Over the next 2 years, more star systems secede and join the Separatists. The Republic Senate, feeling threatened by the growing separatists, considered creating an army to protect themselves. In late 1990 AD, Iraq invades the nation of Kuwait. A coalition of nations prepare a force to drive Iraq out of Kuwait. The tensions come to a head in January of 1991, when Operation Desert Storm begins. In 6 weeks, the Iraqi war machine is crushed and the Iraqis are driven out of Kuwait. At this same time, Padme Amidala, now Senator of Naboo, attempts to protest the creation of an army, but not long after Operation Desert Storm concludes on Earth, an assassin attempts to kill her as she arrives on Coruscant. Attempting to unravel the mystery behind her attacker, the Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi discovers the clone army on Kamino, as well as a bounty hunter named Jango Fett. He chases Fett to Geonosis, where he finds the Geonosians creating a droid army for the Separatists. He is captured by the Geonosians, as are Amidala and Anakin Skywalker when they attempt to rescue him. The Jedi Order sends a large strike team to Geonosis to rescue the 3 captives, and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is voted emergency powers by the Senate. He commissions the clone army and sends it to Geonosis. The Separatists are defeated in the First Battle of Geonosis, and the Clone Wars begin. 5 months after the Battle of Geonosis, the Republic learns of a Separatist expedition into another galaxy, and of their effort to locate the source of mysterious signals. The Republic sends their own task force into the same galaxy, and in October they discover Earth, which becomes known as Terra to the Republic. The Republic forges an alliance with many of the nations of Earth, who form a military alliance known as the Terran Alliance. As the Republic prepares the Terran Alliance for war with the Separatists, President George H.W. Bush of the United States persuades the Jedi Council to train a number of men from Earth in lightsaber combat to serve as a defense against the Sith. This team, comprised of 12 elite special operations troops from America, Britain, the Soviet Union, Germany, Israel, China, and Japan, is known as the Anti-Sith Assault Team. Lieutenant Samuel Adams, formerly of the U.S. Navy's SEAL Team 6, is chosen as the team's leader. In early January 1992, the Separatists attack Terra and destroy the Republic fleet protecting the planet. They then launch a massive invasion of Earth, landing droids at 9 different places across Earth. However, the armies of the Terran Alliance, assisted by clones from the Grand Army of the Republic, defeat the Separatists in every battle, and destroy a number of Separatist warships with experimental nuclear missiles. Republic reinforcements then arrive and drive off the remaining Separatist warships. Following the end of the Terran campaign, the Terran Alliance becomes an official government, and the Terran Starfleet is established, with captured Separatist warships and warships gifted from the Republic making up its fleet. The Terran Alliance declares war on the Separatists and sends forces to aid in the Clone Wars. At this time, the Soviet Union breaks up, and North and South Korea unite under a democratic government. A Terran Jedi Order is established, and Plo Koon begins searching for Force-sensitive children across Earth to train as Jedi. The Terran Alliance begins to send soldiers to the Andromeda Galaxy to aid the Republic. However, they also begin gathering information from Republic archives to learn anything they can use to better defend themselves. In the process, they learn of the Star Forge and attempt to find the location of the Lehon system from Republic archives. After several months, they finally find it, and a task force is dispatched. The task force recovers significant debris of the Star Forge's wreckage, allowing Terran scientists to design a Terran Star Forge. The Terran Star Forge is much smaller than the original and is not as powerful, but has the capacity to build ships at great speed. Construction on the facility begins in early 1993 over the star known as Epsilon Eridani. At the same time as the Terran Star Forge is preparing to begin construction, Darth Maul is discovered to still be alive. Terran and Republic forces attempt to pursue him, but he disappears from their radar several times, eventually forming a criminal syndicate that takes over the planet Mandalore, and he takes command of Death Watch, though a number of its warriors reject him and form the Mandalorian Resistance. Soon after his capture of Mandalore, he himself is captured by his former master Darth Sidious and imprisoned. Soon after, he is rescued by his loyal Death Watch soldiers. In October of 1993, the Jedi Temple hangar is bombed, and the American law enforcement agency known as the FBI works with the Jedi to find the bomber. When Ahsoka Tano is accused of conspiring with the bomber and then murdering her, Samuel Adams attempts to keep her out of Republic hands, but she is soon captured. Adams and Anakin Skywalker work to find the real culprit, while U.S. Attorney General William Barr defends Ahsoka before the courts. Barr's defense of Ahsoka is so good that the court nearly votes to acquit her. However, before judgment can be passed, Anakin and Adams bring forward Barriss Offee as the true culprit. Ahsoka is released and all charges are cleared, but she declines to go back to the Jedi Order. Adams and another member of the ASAT team, Colonel Grant Wilson, persuade Ahsoka to come to Earth, where she begins to live with Adams' family. She begins adjusting to life on Earth and even begins applying for college. Over the next several months, the Terran Alliance begin to grow increasingly suspicious of Palpatine, especially after rescuing Clone Trooper 5s from the Republic and learning what he has discovered about the clones' inhibitor chips and Palpatine. This culminates in December of 1993, when the Council of Five, the leaders of America, Britain, France, Russia, and China, vote to put into motion a plan to assassinate Palpatine, believing him to be too untrustworthy and too dangerous to be kept alive. The Clone Wars last for another half year. During that time, Ahsoka Tano returns to the galaxy to help command the Mandalore Coalition in the Siege of Mandalore to capture Maul. In July of 1994, Darth Sidious's plan comes to fruition after he is forced to reveal himself. He successfully turns Anakin Skywalker to the dark side, and Anakin becomes his apprentice, known as Darth Vader. Sidious enacts Order 66, causing clones across the galaxy to turn on their Jedi leaders. Terran forces fight back and successfully save a number of Jedi, including Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Aayla Secura, and Luminara Unduli, as well as Ahsoka Tano. Colonel Tyler Hall and Colonel Dennis Rommel of the ASAT team accompany Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda on their missions to kill Anakin and Palpatine respectively, but both sides ultimately fail. They bring Padme Amidala to Paulus Massa, where she gives birth to twins named Luke and Leia before dying. After this, the Terran Alliance pull all of their forces out of the galaxy, along with any remaining Jedi who will go with them. The only forces left behind are 352 Vietnamese soldiers who are unable to escape the planet Kashyyyk. After retreating back home, the Terran Alliance begin preparing for eventual war with the Empire. A number of clones are brought to Earth, and their inhibitor chips are removed, after which they pledge themselves to the Terran Alliance. A number of rescued Jedi also elect to join the Terran Jedi Order, and a new Jedi High Council is established with Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Aayla Secura, Luminara Unduli, Sims, and Kirik Infila. At the same time in the Andromeda Galaxy, the Vietnamese soldiers on Kashyyyk begin an insurgency against the Empire. Shortly after the retreat to Terra, the anti-Sith assault team meets as a whole for the first time since 1992 at the site of the Terran Jedi Temple near Shepherdstown, West Virginia. There they swear an oath to see the Sith and the Empire destroyed and the Republic restored. And that's the history of the Terran Alliance series through the end of the Clone Wars. Once I finish The Terran Alliance Strikes Back, I'll make an updated timeline video through the end of that story. Until then, may the Force be with you.